Our witnesses today are going to talk to you about their personal experiences. We'll let you decide from their stories exactly whether or not we are living in that police state. Our first witness is, he's hit the front page of the newspapers. He's been described as paranoid and schizophrenic. He's a thorn in the side of the authorities. He's a fighter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Norman Scarth.
Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I must thank Roger for a very concise but very perceptive resume of the state of Britain. Congratulations, Roger. That truly was excellent. I don't normally wear my medals and the white beret of the Arctic Russian convoys, except I follow the practice of Nelson, and he always wore his medals when he was going into battle. I'm not going into battle with you, I hope, but I am going into battle. Mind you, look what happened to Nelson. It was because he wore his medals that he was able to be picked off by a sniper. Anyway, what am I going to say? If you look back there, the placards back there are 4 placards of mine, and you will see the front page of the newspaper. Can you hear me well enough? Is my voice coming across? If you look back there, you will see the front page of the Bradford Telegraph and Argus. A paranoid, disturbed, violent and crazed old man. That's me. Now, most of that is true. I am disturbed at the state of the nation. I was once violent. I joined the Royal Navy, and you can't get much more violent than that. With guns, bombs, depth charges, torpedoes, etc. And I played my very small part in killing 1,867 of the bravest men in the world, the crew of the German battlecruiser Scharnhorst. I am not proud of that. The tragedy is that all those men, British and German, died in vain. Everything we fought against then is here now in Britain, added to which we have the evil of Stalinist Russia, where dissidents were put in lunatic asylums if they didn't get a bullet in the back of the head. So I'm proud of that. That front page of the newspaper was intended to destroy me. And when I first saw it, I thought I daren't show my face out on the street, and then I realised, no, I can use that to my advantage. So I had a placard of it, and I have it on my shopping trolley when I go shopping. And I get some wonderful smiles and thumbs up signs, and people say, you must have been telling the truth. And that is why. So I'm proud of that they exhibit such hatred against me, that those were the words of a completely corrupt judge, and published with glee by the editor of the Bradford Telegraph and Argus. I'm also proud that I spent 6 years in many different prisons and 2 lunatic asylums from the age of 75. The hatred, well, I'll maybe go on what I've written here, it may flow better. So I'm proud of that front page, and I'm proud of the fact that I spent 6 years in prison from the age of 75. Well, 4 years in prison and 2 years in 2 lunatic asylums. I'm not a criminal, and I'm not a lunatic. In a state which imprisons any unjustly, the true place for a just man is in prison, said Henry David Thoreau 200 years ago. I am proud that fate directed my tiny feet to follow in the giant footsteps of Mahatma Gandhi, the suffragettes, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Pastor Martin Niemöller, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Andrei Sakharov, Vladimir Bukovsky, Nelson Mandela, Steve Biko, Ken Saro-Wiwa, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Ali, Fred Hill, and so many others, some who survived, many who did not. It is no disgrace to be in prison in Britain, and they are not the holiday camps that corrupt politicians and the so-called news media would have you believe. They are bad places run by very bad people, apart from which they are a very expensive but quite ineffective way of dealing with crime. I've already said most of the words on the front page are true. I am disturbed at the state of the nation. I have been violent. I did join the Royal Navy. I am old, and I am a man, or at least I once was. Whether I am paranoid or crazed, you must judge for yourselves. After the war, most of my life was spent as a small farmer, horse breeder and horse whisperer, as popularly known. It was my work, my hobby and my life. Until the age of 70, I was proud to be British, believing, as we were constantly told, that British judges are the finest in the world. However, from the age of 70, there came a succession of shocks as I began to learn, by chance, that corruption is rampant in our courts. In memory of the brave men of both sides who died around me in World War II, and what we believed we were fighting for, I could not turn my back, made a dramatic change of career, and made it my mission in life to expose what can best be described as the judicial mafia. It has proved to be a very dangerous mission. Lawyers are the new master race. They have seized absolute power and will destroy anyone they see as a threat to that power, big or little. Roger published Time to Speak about the corrupt state. I suspect that few of you know, maybe quite a number of you here do, but I say that few of you know, and certainly the nation doesn't know just how deep and wide is that corruption. The terrible things that go on behind the scenes. The torture and murder of Andy McCardle. You'll see back there being only one of them. However, we are not only up against this corrupt state. With sadness, shame and sorrow, I am forced to tell you that the British people allow it to be so. I say, I'm not you, the very fact that you are here shows that you are not. I said 99% of the people are either corrupt, brainwashed or spineless. The fact that you are here suggests that you do not come under that heading, but you are only a tiny few. I had great hopes that at the last election people would say we have had enough of crime, corruption and war, and would kick out most of the sitting members. Tragically, a majority of the British people voted for more of the same. More crime, more corruption, more war. Our only hope is that you, good people, can waken the brainwashed and ignite a spark of courage in the spineless. I find it nauseating when MPs and the so-called news media say, we live in a democracy. We have neither democracy, human rights, nor the rule of law. Instead, we have the rule of lawyers, a very different thing. As for Magna Carta and habeas corpus, we have them in theory, but certainly not in reality. I have tried to use habeas corpus for myself and others. No, 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 no. It does not exist in reality. In the UK column for January-February 2009, there was a half page by Mrs. Oliver Fairfax. It was a humorous piece, but there was one serious paragraph. She wrote, "What a mess." And it has to be said that this mess is being caused by our own failures to elect honest, working people to represent us in Parliament and in local government. The front page of the May 2010 issue of UK column, I believe that's the latest one, said, "We must get a few good men into Parliament and fast." I presume that was written before the election, I presume. Yes, indeed, but we warned, standing for Parliament with the intention of bringing honesty to that place can be very dangerous, as evidenced by happenings to me. At the 1997 general election, I stood in Chesterfield as an independent old age pensioner. The first point in my manifesto was my concern at the lack of concern by regular politicians, or people in the main, at the violent attacks on the old and vulnerable. Almost unheard of until the 1960s, but now an everyday occurrence. Only muggers and burglars could disagree with that. However, my second manifesto point was about corruption in our courts, of which I had only newly become aware. Those subjects were also in my book, Cause for Concern, published the same year. It is fairly obvious that the judicial mafia did not like what I was saying, though I was regarded as no more than a noisy old buffoon, a parliamentary no-hoper. I will say about my standing in Chesterfield, a town I'd never set foot in before my life, with no supporters, nothing. Chesterfield, that was in 1997, was only one of only 4 seats in the country where the massive swing to Labour was reversed, and I claim that was thanks to me. A long story, well, I haven't time to go into that. But the regard for me as a noisy old buffoon changed in 1998-1999, when my single-handed success in the European Court of Human Rights brought a vital change in British law, a change much hated by lawyers and judges, and I am hated for it. They determined to silence me. On 8th of August 1999 came the first of 2 potentially lethal terror attacks by West Yorkshire police, being used as a private army without even the pretence of a lawful excuse. During a second attack 11 months later, they gave me a brutal kicking that put me in hospital. And that's the least of what they did to me. Much worse was to follow. Even that, putting me in hospital, didn't fail to silence me. So there was a malicious prosecution for a non-existent crime. It wasn't that I was not guilty of the crime. There was no crime, certainly not by me, though there was by the police and those who ordered them. There followed a kangaroo court trial at Sheffield Crown Court. Judge David Ronald Bentley, the sadist if ever there was one, he lives at 311 Ecclesall Road, Sheffield, with his wife Christine. Oh yes. I think we should, I will just say, I think I've said it elsewhere. One of the things we ought to be doing, where we know the names of our judges, I know the address rather, circulate those addresses. Let them, they know our addresses, let them live in fear as we do. He also banned the press from my kangaroo court trial, and with them absent, made no attempt to hide his hatred of me. 3 times when I protested at his gross misconduct, he had me literally dragged and thrown back down the cells. He fed monstrous lies to the specially selected jury to get the guilty verdict he wanted. Then, where others would have been given probation, community service, suspended sentence or similar, for the first offence, which I said was not an offence at all, by a 75-year-old World War II veteran, he gave me a sentence to ensure I died in prison. 6 years at the age of 75, plus 4 years on extended licence. There followed 6 years of being shunted around between many different prisons and 2 lunatics' asylum. When they put you in prison, certainly such as me, or dissidents or those that they want to silence, they don't just put you in one prison and leave you there. They move you around between one to the other to disorient you. I had about 30 moves in 6 years. As I said, I'm not a criminal and I'm not a lunatic. That such powerful people should go to such lengths to silence one little old man is the highest compliment they could pay me. I never expected to be allowed out alive. But thanks to one honest psychiatrist, many are not. Here I am, still seeking to expose the judicial mafia and still under attack from them, their Gestapo thugs, their lackeys and their sycophants. You will now understand why Deputy High Court Judge Richard Mowry QC used those words of hatred against me, paranoid, disturbed, etc., etc. In that other kangaroo court, the hearing of my election petition last year. This was my attempt to expose the Zimbabwean type arrest and incarceration by West Yorkshire Police while I was a candidate at the 2008 local election. As for that American-owned newspaper, Bradford Telegraph and Argus, a propaganda sheet for the state, which published with such words, the words of Maury, Deputy High Court Judge. The editor is obviously a clone of Joseph Goebbels. I think most of you may know who he was. A conference by its nature is only words. We're up against some very evil people who laugh at the words. There must be action. I hope none of you buy a television license. Unfortunately, I cannot make that protest because I'm entitled, I don't have to have a television license, but I've got to make application not to have one. Well, I don't do that. So that's my little protest there. Thus paying for the propaganda which is piped into your homes. One very simple action could have a dramatic effect. I am not suggesting that you should refuse to pay your motor tax. I am suggesting that your tax disc should fall off the windscreen and that you put it in the glove box for the time being. If enough people did that, police, parking wardens and the courts would be in confusion and serve them right. I've said the police know our home, police and the courts know our home addresses. Let us know theirs. In particular, the judicial mafia. We should organise mass picketing. Yes, it might be in breach of the Harassment Act, but I submit we have a duty to disobey bad laws and those which are seriously misused, as that one is, the Harassment Act. No tyranny was ever brought down without those prepared to give their liberty and their lives. Sadly, there are few such in Britain, and the tyranny continues. My single-handed success in the European Court of Human Rights was a remarkable achievement for a little old man. Forgive me for my lack of modesty in saying that, but an achievement for a little old man who had left school at 13 and been a small farmer for most of my life. Well, perhaps I'm wrong, but I doubt that anyone in this hall has done as much for this nation, given as much, or achieved as much as I have. I have many ideas for effective action, yet find that I am fighting virtue alone. If only I could gain a little support from a handful of people in Bradford or West Yorkshire, where I live, we could achieve much. And we'll just say the latest attack on me was 10 days ago, I was invited to the Lord Mayor of Bradford's luncheon for veterans. After the excellent lunch, I stood up to thank the Lord Mayor for the excellent lunch and for everything else that Bradford Council has done for me. I intended to speak for no more than 60 seconds and then sit down. I hadn't spoken for more than 20 or 30 seconds when a covert Nazi thug grabbed me in a bear hug, dragged me out of the room and ejected me from the building. It was so quick, nobody there knew what was happening. I say covert Nazis. They are the dangerous ones. And I use the word Nazi for want of a better one. At least Hitler and his Nazis were honest. They said we're going to exterminate the Jews, the gypsies, the homosexuals, the Freemasons, not a bad thing maybe, gypsies, etc., etc. So, and if you weren't one of the white Aryan race, you would have no rights at all. So we knew where we were with Hitler. Our lot pretend that we live in a democracy with human rights and the rule of law. I said, we have none of them. Some of you have got my leaflet. It's from when I was a candidate 3 years ago, so that little bit is out of date, but the rest of it is still very relevant. If you haven't got a copy, then please ask me for one. I think I've now had my 15 minutes of fame. I could go on for another 15 days with the horror of police state Britain, but I believe in the KISS principle. I try to follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. So that's it for now. I think, if you would like to put the picture of Andy McArdle up, but there's a picture of him there. Andy McArdle, brutally murdered in a so-called mental hospital. Tortured beyond belief. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Nobel laureate, said that to put a sane person in a madhouse, to use his word, is worse than the gas chambers. The torture is more cruel. Death takes longer. And so it was for Andy McArdle. He suffered the torture of forcible injections over many months to destroy his brain. But they couldn't, even that was unsuccessful, so then he was brutally murdered. You'll see more back there about it. So I think that's it. So there. If there is anybody in my area that possibly support me, I don't mean for them to put their liberty or lives at risk. I'm prepared to speak out in the Centennial Square, the big square in Bradford. I'm prepared to speak out. I dare not do so unless there are a few people with cameras to see what happens. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Norman. Well done. Well done.